Stanford University.
Welcome back. We have some time here just to hear a few words from your share outs, from your small groups. You can either pop it in the chat and I can read it, or you can just unmute yourself and share a few words from your small group. Thank you so much for that. Something that you said, Linda, reminded me that I was, just in an emergent way, beginning to think about this framework for liberation. And really what it's doing is helping us help ourselves change, right? Change our mode focus of attention, right? Unlearn the things that are not serving us. And so I'll just pop in the chat this acronym I was thinking about, but it's really a framework for change that's about collective habits for alchemizing our negative grasp of everything, our negative grasp on everything, yeah? So that we can begin focusing on the things that we choose, that we want to see in the world. That whole be the change mantra requires practice, and you find it in yourself before you can seed it in the world. So thank you for those reflections, Linda. Does anyone else want to share? It looks like we had some words from Laura: freeing, grounding, working with discomfort, following the path of those truths towards something different, a relationship rather than an avoidance, right? And scrolling up a little bit here.
And Yasmin, as you read those comments too, I want to emphasize as well that we have to develop a practice of holding discomfort in this work. And this is where my practice is centered around, right? I just, we have a tendency to constantly react to the hard stuff that comes up. This is why many of us can't have conversations, because we get triggered and we start reacting, you know. Um, but to hold that discomfort, like I did, I had this dialogue with Dan Harris on this podcast, 10% Happier, which kind of went viral, which I don't really understand because I really wasn't trying that much. All I was doing was like having a conversation and doing my practice. But many of us really, we don't have that capacity, right? Like we feel the anger and we're like, fuck you, get out of my face, you know? And there's a maturity that we have to grow into, because the realistically, and I want to evoke Whitney Houston when she's saying, it's not right, but it's okay. And so in this context, it's not right that some of us will have to do extraordinary emotional labor to bring about transformation in the world. That's just kind of how it has to be, but it's okay, you know. So don't get mad at me when I'm using the word okay because Whitney said it first. So get mad at her. Um, like we have to get out of this, particularly in work like this. We kind of have to disrupt our fixation on fairness. Like everyone isn't going to have an equitable amount of work. It's not going to be an equal share, you know. Um, but we say, you know what? I want to develop the practices, the capability to hold and to work with what I've been given right now to create change and transformation.
Yes. Other people, like, you down with other people's problems? No, definitely be. Right? Like, we really do have to make sure that we're carrying what's ours and not unnecessarily carrying other people's things. I catch myself doing that all the time, right? Other people's sense of urgency, other people's sense of perfectionism, other people's need to self flagellate, right? There's an enabler tendency in us that can create space for things that other people are holding that can actually inhibit our ability to be present for ourselves, especially when those things are infringing on what matters most in that moment. Correctness was one that Karen's group was resonating with, right? Like that. Oh, connectedness. Correct. Connected. Sorry. Um, Connectedness. That's beautiful. The meditation helped me sit with a lot of sadness and pain and to make and hold space for emotions and feelings. In this period of time, we have just been, we were already going breakneck speed. I remember that run up to the March shelter in place order. And I was personally going my absolute fastest. And that shutdown just startled every aspect of me because I was so invested in the pace at which I was doing things, moving things, connecting things, creating things. And all of a sudden, I couldn't move in the same way anymore. And I really became aware of how invested I was in the pace of productivity that I had created for myself. And in the pandemic itself, the virus, and then the subsequent uprising, the work of reimagining community safety and accountability, all of this has been an overwhelm, revamping our lives to accommodate the current conditions. When we move so fast that we cannot feel ourselves feeling, that we don't care that we can't feel ourselves feeling, not only do we leave ourselves behind, but we also leave behind our ability to be present to the present. We're only present to our expectations of what is needed, not to the immediacy of what we're experiencing in our communities, in ourselves, in our families. That ability to be both flexible and alert is what we're cultivating through contemplative practices and approaches and embodied practice. To be both ready and receptive so that our alertness, our vigilance doesn't cause us to contract so much that we shut down to what's coming up for us in our bodies, the grief that we need to process, the loss and pain that we need to talk to a friend about, call somebody up, the rage that we don't know what to do with, we cannot carefully express in professional or polite company, but need to be able to move through. Making time for that. Sadness and pain is the first step to move together towards the possibility of that which we've been
Jasmine, I'd like to just point out a question in the chat. May I read it? Or can
Yes.
Thank you. Can you speak a bit more about how to hold the discomfort while engaging in conversation? I find it easier to sit with physical discomfort in the body in meditation than it is to hold my emotional discomfort without reacting while having difficult conversations. My mind gets distracted more easily in those moments, even though I know the core spaciousness piece is still there, whether or not I'm formally practicing. think that's a universally relevant question.
Mhm. That's right. That's right. And, one of the practices that we often do in radical Dharma spaces is called centering practice. And for me, centering practice is something that I learned over time. But it's really about beginning to train the body to lead the mind, to lead the speech. And by doing so, we can begin to bring ourselves out of a trigger response. So, in those spaces of discomfort, when we're holding discomfort in a difficult conversation, where does our energy go? Where does our sense of center go? For me, when I'm having a heated conversation, difficult conversation, I'm holding discomfort, it goes basically back up to that jaw area. Because the reason rage is being held in my jaw is because I'm constantly monitoring and editing what is coming out of my mouth so that I don't offend someone, because I don't want to hurt anyone. But it also means I might not be speaking my truth. So some of the centering practices that we do are about coming back to your heart, about finding your feet, about finding your breath. And when you find yourself centering in a lower hemisphere than this head congestion bottleneck space, all of a sudden there's energy that you can draw up from the earth and into those spaces of tightness, into those spaces of discomfort and disease. And you can give yourself a pause, and you can ask your body, what do you need right now? Do I need to win this argument? Do I need to protect myself from this person? Do I need to protect myself from myself right now? I'm about to explode. What do I need? And maybe that's not about the other person at all. Maybe it's I just need to be heard. I need an apology and I'm not going to get it right now. Right? I need to go hit something. And so I need some space. I need to take a time out. I need to walk away. Right? But when you feel that discomfort arise, the first thing you do is say, hi. The first thing I noticed is that I bypassed it. It was trying to say hi. And I was like, yeah, but I'm trying to get my point across, right? And then something in my practice will be like, your head is about to explode, Jasmine. Perhaps you should check in. And so I find my feet. I find my breath. I touch my heart. I come back to my body and I ask her what she wants. Maybe she just needs to cry and be alone right now. Sandra shared that I found my Qigong practice to be helpful in moving energy from the earth and sky into my organs and to release energy blocks in my organs as well. Ah, what good medicine, Sandra, that you found there. I've been prescribed Qigong by a sound healer recently, and I'm going to be taking that up tomorrow. Tomorrow is my first session. Other folks, I'm sure, find similar movement is possible through yoga, through dance, through breath work. These are the tools that we already have at our disposal, but we forget sometimes to turn to them because we're so used to relying on our head to get us out of a jam. We're so used to mind over matter. And our matter, what really matters is the matter that we occupy. This body matters. And what does it mean for her to lead our minds, tell us what we need to be paying attention to. Maybe one or two more reflections. Thank you so much for that. And I relate. I spent a lot of time studying some of the most incomprehensible aspects of our culture and interrogating the ways in which I've inhabited them, internalized them, consumed them, eaten it all up. And staying in that space can be a bit overwhelming. And so one of the things that I take from the movement for Black Lives is that we are moving at the speed of trust. We are moving at the speed of consent. And what that means for me is that I, like you said, can't do this work alone. We have to do this work in community. I remember when I first started meditation practice for myself, every time I sat, I cried. And there was not a lot of story connected to that crying. There was not a lot of, I couldn't feel like I didn't feel like I was crying. And yet I was releasing every time. And it was a little disturbing. And so I was like, well, maybe I should go do this with other people. Maybe this isn't the kind of work you do alone. And I have to say, it improved. It didn't keep going when I was in community. When it was held, something else arose from the sits. And so I just want to be careful about the ways in which we kind of yield to habits of, I'm just going to handle this by myself, and retreat into ourselves and know that this is not your problem. This is our problem. And the solutions are going to be held in community. And then know that everyone is coming with their own experience, direct experiences, wounds, grief, loss. And we just need to be mindful of that as we do the work so that we can move at the speed of trust and move at the speed of consent. It's hard because the proximity to kind of the emergency of the moment has this kind of like unrelenting drumbeat, bass beat. And that can be a bit anxiety producing and make it feel like the best way to move is just to like meet it full force, right? With the same degree of urgency that it is imparting upon us. But the reality is that we are simultaneously healing and recreating the world that we are residing in, taking refuge on. That work is time work. And so slowing ourselves down long enough to be able to check in with, is this pace working for me? Have I hit my limit? Do I need to just go touch earth, go be in sun, be near ocean, heal, rather than continue to face this work head on? Because if we can't keep coming back, then that's a problem, right? We have to be able to continue to return to this work and be able to turn to each other and turn to our own grief. And if we get too kind of mired in it, to be able to see past it, to see each other past it, then it's time to back off. That's when we know we hit our limit.